older single women like you're describing, Kyra, or young Gen Zs who are, in college, and you're trying to figure out how do they express themselves in a way that makes them a person worthy of respect, that they have self-respect and that they would gain respect from their peers. It is a really interesting question to understand that status is in some ways really, and so you put somebody in a situation where the game that they're playing doesn't seem like they can win or they can get respect. Then what do you do? And this is kind of the edge of my thinking on this. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about this, but I think that if this is a root cause for a lot of really bad ideas and people advocating for something like virtue signaling over actual virtue and the danger that that creates, how do we help people actually feel respected? How do we help someone who's in Gen Z, for example, and they look at the economic conditions that they're graduating into, and they don't believe that they're going to be able to achieve very easily economic status and maybe career success. It's going to be a long journey, and there are going to be many years where they're going to feel just undervalued, and so they're looking for a game to play that actually will cause them to be respectable. Do you guys have any thoughts about what somebody like that ought to do in order to avoid being taken in by a virtue status game and just kind of quickly getting status from this kind of moral posturing?
Well, I kinda have a hard time finding a way without Christianity and without Jesus, because when I think about how I have played that game, I've just come to acknowledge my status as a daughter in God's eyes and how that gives me status, and He has given me assignments, He's given me a role to play in the kingdom, in His army, um, and me playing that role to the best of my ability is what gives me fulfillment and what helps me live my life. And that identity as a daughter gives me status that I don't feel like I have to fight for. I'm not constantly trying to get on top. I'm not constantly trying to prove myself because I already am that. And then I can love him back by performing my duties, my role in the army, and that gives me joy and fulfillment. And so but I would say outside of that, it would be difficult. I don't really know why someone would dedicate their lives to being a better person or being a father or mother or creating a legacy. I don't know if there is a whole lot of motivation for that outside of Christianity, but if there is, I feel like that's the route I would go. I think that if you're able to parent well, you're either to father or mother a child well and raise them to be good people, then I feel like that is an accomplishment and that living your life well like that, imparting wisdom, that will give you status. And like if you've done that well, I just imagine grandfathers, grandfathers and grandmothers. Nothing is more respectable than someone that is old and has lived their life well. They have gone through all these stages of life and not been run down by the world. And so I feel like that's very respectable to me. The gray hair is very respectable, and I think that that has kind of lost some of its status. But yeah, I again, it's just kind of difficult for me to really carry out that logic without the foundation of Christianity, but because I think that the morals in Christianity are the best morals. The being wise, being loving your neighbor as yourself, even if that means telling them something tough, things like that, that I just feel like are the best way to live, even as a person. But I don't know why someone would follow that to the T if they weren't a Christian. So it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Kyra, what about you? What would you think somebody might need to do in order to overcome being sort of sucked into a status game like this?
I mean, uh, I feel like I feel like the reason that people stopped, I mean, they said it in the podcast, but another reason that people might have stopped, especially young people, stopped finding status through work and stuff like that is because like if you work, you're boring and you want to be unique and cool and fun and whatever. So, lot of people are, since they want to be unique and cool, they're looking for their truth, and that's, like, said all over the place. They're looking for their truth. And I mean, as soon as you find truth in Christ, if you do find truth in Christ, then like your status is fulfilled and you don't need, if you feel like you need something else, then there might be something wrong. Like you should feel like this is all you need. You don't need status anymore. So
Hmm, that's
yeah,
good.
it kind of like fulfills it all the way.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, it's interesting. The gospel does really make this clear all the way back in Genesis, when Adam and Eve first felt shame when they ate from the fruit and felt they have to do something. I got to find a fig leaf to cover my nakedness. And it's really been for all of human history, every culture, every group is attempting to find a new fig leaf that will successfully cover the shame that they feel at their inadequacy. And so so it's not, I think it's a little dangerous to point to one status game as being superior to another when they're all kind of broken in different ways. There's different dangers, right? There's a particular kind of danger that the success status game will bring into a culture versus a moral status game. But what you guys are saying is, look, in the gospel, you have actually the ability to solve the status problem, which is that, and Paul says this is, he's able to say it on one hand, I'm the worst of all sinners. Like I've got zero status. I mean, I was a persecutor of the church. I was the worst kind of sinner. And yet he says in Galatians at the end, he's like, I boast in the cross of Christ, which really means like when my spirit is really accusing me, or my soul or some part of me feels like a lack of value, I can always point to the cross and say, for whatever it's worth, I was worthy, or I was somehow worth the blood of the firstborn son of the Father. God came and died for me. Like, you're not going to find more status than that, right? 'Cause one of the things you can always experience is, when you're trying to figure out what something's worth, an old adage is, well, what is somebody willing to pay for it? Like, that's how you find the value for something. And so I think what Paul is saying there is, look, somebody was willing to pay, somebody that had more riches and more status than anyone ever had was willing to give all that up to save me. That's what I'm worth. So it's kind of ridiculous for me to entertain accusations against my own status. If I feel those accusations, I just need to boast in the cross and say, look at, this is what someone was willing to pay for me. I don't understand it. I don't deserve it. It's pure grace. Like I don't feel like that value is somehow inside of me, but that was a decision that God made to love me that much. So yeah, I do agree with what both of you are saying. With outside of a real experience of the gospel, I think we're all stuck trying to go from one status game to another, right? And that's kind of what we need to overcome.
Thank you for listening to Jeremy Pryor's podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any future content. Follow Jeremy on Twitter and Instagram, as well as his Substack blog, all linked in the description. See you next time.